Welcome to season 14 of the Parenting Aces Podcast, a proud member of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. I'm your host, Lisa Stone. This week, we are talking to the new CEO of the Intercollegiate Tennis Association, the ITA. His name is David Mullins, and if you've been a listener or viewer of this podcast for a while, you have seen him here multiple times in his various roles as a college coach, as the COO of the ITA, and everything in between. So I'm really grateful to Dave for coming back on the podcast to talk with us about what's going on in college tennis, specifically as it relates to the house settlement with the NCAA and recruiting and roster limits and scholarship limits and all of that stuff. So we dig into so many different topics in this conversation. And if you have a child who aspires to play college tennis or who is going through the recruiting process right now, this is the podcast for you. Before I bring Dave on, I want to just let y'all know we have had a date change for our trip to Spain. We are going to be traveling a little bit earlier in July now. So if you were interested in the trip, but the dates didn't work out for you before, maybe take a look at the new dates, reach out to me. I'll be happy to share all the details with you. And we'd love to have you join us as we go to Barcelona and then to Mallorca to the Rafael Nadal Academy. And it's going to be an amazing, amazing trip. I'm so excited to go back and see some of the coaches that I got to work with last year, but also to be there with you guys and see your kids in action and see you enjoying that beautiful country. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode and my conversation with Dave Mullins. Dave, great to see you in your new role as CEO of the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. Thank you so much for taking time to chat with us. I have so many questions.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the world of college athletics right now, Lisa. So thanks for having me on and looking forward to getting into this with you today.
Yeah, you and I kind of stay in contact all the time, and I'm constantly getting updates through the ITA itself. And there's so much happening with this house settlement, with roster limits, with scholarship limits, with recruiting. And I think there's a lot of confusion out there among families, especially those whose kids are already in high school and maybe are, starting the recruiting process, want to play college tennis at some level. And I'm really hoping we can clear some stuff up for them today. I think there's a lot of feeling of, maybe this is all not worth it. What are we doing here? We're spending so much time and money on this junior tennis thing. And is college tennis even going to exist for my kid as an opportunity? And so I really want to provide some clarity.
Okay. Yeah, I will do my best to fill in any gaps.
Okay. So first of all, why don't you kind of give our audience a sense of what your job description is as the head of the ITA?
Yeah, so well, to give a little bit more context, I'm a former college tennis player, college tennis coach. I've been 5 years at the ITA in the chief operating officer role. So my day to day in that role was really running the organization. So kind of, a little bit of everything, master of nothing. And but those 5 years exposed me to every element of the business, the various relationships we have with stakeholders. And so, yeah, went through a long interview process and ended up, being offered the role back in May. Tim Russell, our previous CEO, retired December 31st. I took over as CEO on January 1st. So I'm really trying to take myself out of the weeds of the day-to-day running of the organization because we're a small not-for-profit. We've got 13 staff members. We're not very big. But we're trying to do a lot. And so, my role now as CEO moves more into how are we attracting corporate partnerships, fundraising, how are we raising money to help support college tennis moving forward. There's obviously an advocacy piece to that as well, working with the NCAA, the NAIA, NJCAA, CCAA, building those relationships with conferences, athletic directors, really trying to get a sense of what we can actually control, what we can influence, and then doubling down on those things. I mean, there's a lot of distractions, shiny balls we can chase, but it's trying to avoid the temptation and stay disciplined with those things that we hopefully can control going forward. But yeah, there's lots going on, and those are the hard decisions we need to make. I mean, where do we put our priorities? I mean, that's the other part of it, and also just Lisa, and you helped fill out a survey that I've been putting out to various folks, but building the strategy for the ITA for college tennis starting July 1st, 2025. So I've got kind of 6 months here to get my feet underneath me in this new role, while also building out a strategy, matching our budget to that strategy. But I think I'm having a hard time with, should that strategy just be 1 year, because a lot can change as we've seen in recent months, a lot more can change. But yeah, really getting clear on that strategy and then pointing the organization, the company in that direction to move ahead with trying to achieve whatever we have on that strategy.
The last time we chatted, which was, I believe, last summer, we talked about the House settlement a little bit and what the implications might be for college tennis. That was at least 6 months ago, maybe longer. And I'm just curious what your thoughts are on what's happening with that settlement between the NCAA and the House, and what the ITA's involvement is and role is in helping to shape what college tennis is going to look like moving forward.
Yeah, this again comes back to what can we control, what can we influence, who can we partner with. We actually hired a lobbyist last year. We worked with about 8 other non-revenue Olympic sports to lobby on behalf of our sports, because we don't think our story was being told. All the stories we hear about the football athlete, the basketball athlete, in ensuring that they are receiving, payments that we can argue aren't really just for their name, image, and likeness. It's pay for play, let's call it what it is. And so Tim Russell, our former CEO, actually went to Washington, D.C., sat with a number of Congress people, their aides, and trying to share our story. And there seems to be some interest at that time. Obviously, it was an election year, new election cycle. And so were they that interested? I mean, there was other things on their minds, shall
Yeah.
we say. Will they get interested now in the coming months? Potentially. Some of the senators that were involved, like Senator Ted Cruz, got reelected. He seems to have taken a leading role and interest in this, and might be willing to try to drive something through. And the ask is that, is really to come up with a federal legislation preventing student athletes from becoming employees. I think there's been a number of people that have got in the ears of student athletes, trying to get them to unionize for their own benefit, but not really understanding what it means to be an employee. And when you educate student athletes on what that means, they go, no, 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 we don't want that. And so but there's still that part of it out there. The other part is the kind of patchwork of name, image, and likeness legislation. You have all these third-party collectives. There's no real, agreed upon value that's placed on any of the student athletes. It's whoever can pay the highest price. And so looking for some federal legislation around that as well. So we then Lisa, we were working with other Olympic sports to actually, we're considering, should we file an objection to the House settlement?
Mm.
And we landed on that we wouldn't file an objection, but we sent an open letter to the judge trying to clarify, kind of our side of the story. Some of the things we're not sure she's been considering or has had enough conversations around. unfortunately, the other sports weren't willing to jump on board with us. They got a little scared at the last minute, shall we say, and didn't necessarily want to be at cross purposes with the NCAA. But we just felt on principle that it was the right thing to do, and that if everybody's saying these things behind the scenes, but doesn't seem to want to say it publicly. And so our organization, our board of directors, the chair of our board, we felt like this was the right thing to do. So we've sent that letter. We don't know if it'll have any impact. We don't even know if the judge will read it. We hope she will and take it into consideration. But all the objections now to the House settlement are in. There's been a lot. There is some discussion now that some folks are saying they're not convinced it will settle in April like it was on track to do. Others are saying it will go through. It'll just go through, I guess, with some form of objection to it. I don't know exactly what that means. And others are saying that, yeah, look, it's a done deal. Athletic departments have already started planning for it. They've started implementing these roster caps starting for next year. They're trying to generate as much revenue, cut costs so they can pay the $22 million a year out to their student athletes. But even with the settlement, it doesn't really, I mean, there's going to be so many more lawsuits that come out of it, Title IX lawsuits. I mean, the whole payment structure, 75% going to football, 15% going to men's basketball straight away, the numbers aren't adding up. So um, it's still a lot of uncertainty, Lisa. And I think even if the settlement goes through, like I said, there's other lawsuits coming. Universities, athletic departments will decide if they're opting in or opting out. We're going to be in this world at least another 2 to 3 years, I would imagine.
And so what does that mean for the junior tennis player that is at peak recruiting age and, hoping to play college tennis either starting fall of 25, 26, 27? What should they be doing to make sure that they have opportunities available?
Honestly, Lisa, I'd encourage them not to get too distracted by it. I mean, again, what can you control? If you want to play college tennis, continue to work as hard as you possibly can, continue to get better, put the time and effort into it. Might college tennis look differently? Might there be less scholarships? Might there be more scholarships? I mean, I hear from some coaches that yeah, they're going, with the roster cap to 10, but traditionally, especially on the women's side, they've had 8 full scholarships and now they're going to 10. How many of the men will go from 4.5 to some higher number? I don't know. Time will tell. So there could potentially be more scholarships out there. There'll be less spots at the Division 1 level because before you basically, I mean, some teams might have 15 players on their roster, right? So
Yeah.
that is going to change. But at all the other divisions, there's no roster caps being implemented. I mean, if anything, at the other divisions, the bigger squads, the better, because sports plays an enrollment role at their university. So again, you can't control these things. We don't know how it's going to shake out. It's going to be, yes, a time of uncertainty. You might even come to college and it look a certain way your first year, and by your junior year, certain rules, regulations, legislations may have changed and it looks completely different. That's just the world we're going to be in for the next few years. And I guess, Lisa, yeah, I mean, most industries, right, deal with a huge amount of uncertainty, whether it's weather events or, the price of oil, whatever.
Yeah.
Our industry's just had so much stability and kind of has plodded along and made some incremental progress, over several decades. And we're just not used to dealing with this level of uncertainty on a daily basis. It doesn't mean you put your head in the sand and hope it all goes away. You just keep working on it. So I think that's the best advice I can be. Don't let this detract or distract from what you're trying to accomplish as a young tennis player.
So there's been some concern that these roster caps and scholarship limits will push players that would have gone after a Division I spot into the other divisions, making it more difficult for players that, you know, maybe weren't at a level to play the top D1 schools, but they always had these other schools as kind of backup options for them, that there are going to be fewer of those spots available to that type of recruit.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing? What do you feel about that? What advice do you have for that player that would, let's say, be a mid-major D1 player, or, you know, a Division II or III player,
Mm-hmm.
that now feels like, ooh, I'm not going to have nearly as many opportunities available to me?
Yeah, again, that may or may not be true, right? I mean, so if you look at the international component at Division Three, 90% of the student athletes are US citizens, 10% or
Mm-hmm.
so are international, and then you go to Division One, where about 60% or so are international. So you could imagine a world where, let's say, pick your university on the men's side that's traditionally had 4.5 scholarships, and the athletic department says, hey, we need two scholarships back because we want to give two additional men's scholarships to baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Pick your sport again. And so now you have a roster cap of 10, but you only have 2.5 scholarships instead of 4.5. Most international players are not in a position to afford the extra tuition prices. Their
Yeah.
family hasn't started a 529B plan when they were born. They didn't even know their kid was going to play tennis. They're not, accustomed to the US system. So you might see Division One start looking a little bit more like Division Three if there are fewer scholarships.
In
Um,
terms of the international versus US,
Exactly. I could
yeah,
see less international. The international student players are only going to come if there's significant scholarships
right,
available.
right.
They're unlike. I mean, not in every case, but say just for generality, they're unlikely to play either Division One or Division Three. Maybe they're more likely to go Division Two or NAI if those scholarships continue to exist in the same way that they have. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, I wouldn't get too fixated on how this might play out. There could be benefits for American players and negatives for international players. And so yeah, I mean, I guess it's school by school. If you're doing your research, you might find in one part of the country or one conference that they end up reducing scholarships, and some others they might expand the scholarships. Will those scholarships go to international players or American? At the end of the day, it depends on the results and rankings and, several other factors that the coaches are considering. So yeah, I wish I could give you, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen, plan accordingly, but it's just too much uncertainty right now.
So, in your opinion, is it appropriate for me to continue to advise people that come to me for
Hmm.
questions about this, that, you know, the goal is for your kid to keep working hard, to continue to get better every day, to reach out to as many college coaches as they can, start the process early, get on coaches' radar, do a great job at branding and marketing themselves to these college coaches so that when it comes time for the coach to make that recruiting decision, that you're on the short list. And beyond that, that's it, it's out of your control, but at least take care of those things that you can control. Start early, have a big funnel of schools that you winnow down as you go through high school and get closer to graduation, but keep an open mind about division, about location, etc.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice, Lisa. And would it change any if there's fewer opportunities? I don't think it would. I mean, these prospective student athletes should always be putting their best foot forward. They should always be, showcasing their talents, personality, what they can add to a tennis team. I mean, I guess it would just get more competitive if less opportunities exist at some point in time. But but yes, I think continuing to give the same advice you have, um, that doesn't change today, and maybe it never changes. It's sound, wise advice that people should be adopting if they want to go down this path.
Yeah. And I think, as these conversations continue to happen, the importance of understanding what the different divisions of college tennis are and what they offer to the prospective student athlete becomes even greater, right? You can't lock yourself into Division 1 or bust. You have to really open your mind and open your research opportunities to all the divisions of college tennis if playing college tennis is important. And there are so many great benefits to playing junior college, to playing Division 3, Division 2, that may or may not exist at a Division 1 school. And I just feel like we've got to keep helping people have access to that information so that they don't get that tunnel vision about Division 1. And
Yeah.
you and I have talked about this a bunch.
Yeah, it is I yeah, I'm constantly I don't say amazed by it, but there's uh, sometimes I think we're putting Division 1 on this pedestal,
Yeah.
and maybe because it's all of the bells and whistles and resources that come with it. But I don't believe for a second, Lisa, that you know some student athlete at a big brand school is any happier than that student athlete at again a smaller, maybe not known as well in some part of the country. Both of them, the things they will remember, the things they will value later in life are the same. The person at the big brand school doesn't remember that they got 17 pairs of Nike tennis shoes versus this one who had to buy their own tennis shoes. Like they're going to remember kind of the crazy road trips they got in, trapped in the snow or whatever it was, when they were stuck at an airport for 17 hours, when the relationships they've made, the lifelong friendships. I'm married to a person I met at who's on the women's tennis team at Fresno State when I played on the men's team. Like I don't know what is the fascination or this belief that these experiences, I would argue at the top of Division 1 now, especially. I mean, it is professional sports.
Yeah.
And so, I think people have this idea that, yeah, being a professional athlete is the greatest thing in the world. Like, it's not. It's a very tough lifestyle, and it's not for everybody. And so, yeah, the sooner, you know, parents especially can be at peace with, maybe my kid, yeah, maybe they're good enough to play at this level, but maybe personality wise and what they want to get out of life isn't the greatest match for that. That,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they don't want to be focused on tennis, 7 hours a day. They actually want to have a more balanced experience, more of a social life, focus on their academics, do internships in the summer. Um, yeah, there needs to be more critical thinking, Lisa, around this topic. And I would hope, yeah, at age 15, 16, that they're not just looking at who are the top 10 teams in Division 1, and they're looking at across all divisions and focusing maybe on what part of the country they might want to be in, or what they want to study, or what, size of the school that they think they would fit in best with.
Well, and as I've said a million times on this podcast and elsewhere, every Division 1 school isn't the same. The opportunities and the experience at the name brand, the top 10 schools, for example, is very different from what you get at a mid-major or lower ranked Division I school. They
Yeah.
don't have the same resources. They don't have the same facilities. They don't have the same travel opportunities. It is just a different animal. And so to say, I only want Division I without understanding the nuances from school to school and from division to division is, it's not helpful. It's not helpful in the child's pursuit. It's not helpful for the parents to have that mindset. And unfortunately, we see a lot of junior coaches that market themselves based on how many of their students have gone on to play D1 tennis.
Yeah.
And that's become like this gauge by which we judge the value of a junior coach. And it's just such a shame that parents and the kids themselves are being fed that process of thinking about college tennis from a very young age. So when Tim was in your role, he and I talked about this, that, the ITA, the USTA too, needs to do a better job at educating everybody around the benefits of each division of college tennis, and having a comparison chart of, what is the experience at each of these divisions. And listen, I've tried over the 14 years of this podcast to interview coaches at the different divisions, to interview players at the different divisions, in hopes that people start to understand that it's not a hierarchy. Division I isn't at the top and Division III at the bottom. There's all sorts of intricacies there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's the naming doesn't help, right? With
No.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, that alone would go a long way to kind of changing the mindset, just taking away those numbers. Yeah, I don't know what you renamed them, but it's not helpful to this discussion. And you're right. I mean, with the academies especially, it fortunately it's shifted a little bit, and maybe it's just going to take a few more years. But 15 years ago, those academies were saying, "Hey, I'm going to take your kid and put them in Wimbledon, and they're going to be a top 10 player in the world." And now they've changed to where, no, the goal is actually to get them to play Division I college tennis. But maybe in another 5 years, it'll be, we want to take your kid and make them good enough to play college tennis, and put no division around it whatsoever. And so, yeah, I mean, I think we helped the USTA with a couple of webinars last fall, and they said it was the highest attended webinars they've ever done. I think they had like 1,100 parents on each webinar, and taking them through all the different divisions, which was great. But yeah, it might take another generation of us just beating this drum, and we'll see what changes are coming. Some of these things might take care of themselves moving forward. But for the system we have in place, we just need to keep encouraging people to keep an open mind, and really parents. And I know that's a big part why you did the podcast, was to try and educate the parents. I mean, I've seen it in tennis, I've seen it in soccer with my own son as well, and a lot of similarities in the parents. I mean, their view early on is that they're supporting the kid to become professional, and then with each passing year, reality kind of kicks in a little bit. And so they go from professional to the top of Division I to, well, maybe Division I, and then, then they're not getting any feedback from Division I, and they start looking at other places. I guess reality catches up with them eventually, but then they're just, at that point, they're just taking whatever's out there,
Yeah.
because they've wasted so much time chasing something that wasn't the right fit or wasn't achievable. And it's like, if you just started this process earlier, you will be so much happier in the long run.
Well, and I don't ever want anybody to feel like they settled for something. I
Right.
want these kids, I mean, listen, not just the kids, the families work so hard to get their kids through this junior tennis journey. It's expensive, it's time consuming. We know all that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever want anybody to feel like, well, we settled and went to Division III because Division I wasn't available.
Hmm.
because my kid wasn't good enough, or as the player, I wasn't good enough. I want people to feel excited about
Yeah.
playing college tennis, period. And I can't remember if it was you, Dave, or somebody else said to me when my son was going through this, like, do you realize, like, just being in the recruiting process itself makes your kid an elite player
Mm.
in this sport, that they're even good enough to consider playing college tennis at any level? There's such a small percentage of the whole junior tennis ecosystem that gets to that level.
Right.
And like, that's something to be really proud of and excited about.
Yeah, yeah, no, couldn't agree. I definitely didn't say that. That was too profound. But no, it is. I mean, what an incredible opportunity. I don't. I mean, it's just, again, we don't have it anywhere else in the world, and is it perfect? No, it's not. But it's definitely better than any other system I've seen in the world, and so. Yeah, to be able to continue your tennis at a high level, for an additional 4 years after your junior tennis, and there's so many benefits that come out of it. I mean, I tell people I learn more from my coach, from my teammates on the tennis court than I did from any professor. And it's served me so well in so many different realms of my life. But yeah, yeah, anybody who thinks they're settling, yeah, change your mindset. Look at it a
Yeah,
little different. This doesn't happen for everybody, and there's people in this country and all over the world that would what they would do to be in that position to be
right.
recruited or have an opportunity to be on one of these rosters.
Yeah, for sure. I want to shift gears before we run out of time. And quickly, I want to say the letter that Dave mentioned earlier, the open letter that they wrote to the judge in this house settlement. I'll have a link to that in the show notes on parentingaces.com. So if you haven't read it, I posted it on our Facebook page as well. But it's worth reading because it will open your mind to what this college athletic experience should be and can be for our kids. And I thought it was really well done. Kudos to the attorney that you guys are working with that wrote that letter, and kudos to all of you who had the input into that letter, because I know it wasn't the lawyer that came up with that language. It was a man, I think, that wrote it, right, on
Yeah,
his
Craig
own.
Shifton.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but I do encourage everybody who is on the path to playing college tennis to have a look at that. So that'll be linked. Um, Dave, I want to just give you an opportunity to talk about some of the initiatives that the ITA is working on, some of the opportunities that you're hoping that are going to come to fruition under your time at the helm, and how you guys are working with USTA and with NCAA to make all of these things happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress. Like I said, I'm in the feedback gathering stage. Did an exercise with our board in December. Did an exercise with our coaches. We have a survey out to our coaches right now, our other stakeholders. So I'm trying to get as much input, see where the themes are, see what can be tackled here in the next couple of years. The USTA really, with each passing year, are identifying ways in which they can support college tennis more and more. They're now going to be I think maybe you saw for Division One, going to be the 10-year permanent host and make a huge investment into that event, which I think is very timely because I can't imagine too many universities willing to invest in an NCAA tennis championship the way maybe they have in the past because of the 22 million they need to pay out to men's basketball and men's football going forward. So I think they've stepped in at just the right time to really support and elevate that event. They're also, I'm not sure if you saw, but their facility grants have gone from I think 1.5 million to 10 million. And they're really going to be targeting a lot of collegiate tennis facilities and helping them with court resurfacing, lighting, electronic line calling companies, complete rebuilds, architectural designs. Again, very, very timely when maybe athletic departments are looking to go spend their money elsewhere.
Right.
That these monies are becoming available at just the right time. So we're very encouraged by that, and hope that continues for many years to come, that they continue to target those college facilities, because the facilities that especially open up to the communities, we always encourage our coaches to go down that direction as well. There's many obvious benefits to doing that. With the NCAA, we have a great relationship, probably better than many coaches associations, because they actually take our rulemaking process. I think we're one of maybe two sports that make their own rules, and the NCAA adopt them. So that's very promising. We hope that will continue. And then they also take our rankings at Division One for selections, for the singles, doubles, and team event. But they're going through, yeah, some major changes here. We're not sure, will we need to play a larger role going forward? I mean, could there be a day where the ITA needs to figure out the eligibility rules for college tennis players and be going through an
Ooh.
eligibility process because the NCAA is no longer empowered to do that? Or, the NCAA implodes in some way if these Power Four conferences break away and create their own Super League. That diminishes the March Madness tournament in the basketball event. There's lots of unknowns there, but we're we're trying to do what we can to maintain the best relationship we can. I mean, we've also developed great relationships with the ATP, the ITF, the WTA, not as much. The ATP have been a lot more engaged with college tennis in recent years than the WTA, but hopefully
Which
that.
is so weird because we're seeing the women, these former college players are doing so well on the women's tour.
Incredible. Yeah, I mean, we have such great stories with Schneider and Navarro and Stearns in recent years. But I found maybe sometimes the women have been a few years behind the men. And
Mm.
again, hoping the WTA catches up. So look, you're asking me, like, all of those relationships I need to do a good job maintaining, hopefully to build, and figure out how we can get more support for college tennis going forward. But we also have to look at, okay, if there is a breakaway at Division One, if these Super League is created, what is our role in that? Do we have a role in that? Should we even be going down that direction? Or should we focus on all the other, the mid majors and all the other divisions, and let these super leagues do what they're going to do? Or do we need to be, yeah, very much a part of that, supporting, marketing, the top of Division One? Maybe it looks more like what the ATP looks like, with all the statistics and head to head and broadcasting, streaming, sports wagering, all these different things that, professional sports looks like now. So these are all things we are exploring and keeping an open mind to, but at some point we're really going to have to put a stake in the sand, and this is the direction we're going. This is what we're investing in, because we're not in a position to make huge bets, right? We're, again, very
Yeah.
small organization. We have some money in reserves, but that can run out in a hurry. If we take a risk, we need it to pay off. So
Hmm.
so yeah, lots to consider, but we can't do it alone. We need as many partners as possible, that have larger infrastructures and deeper pockets than we do. So we're, again, you know, focused on what we can control, but recognizing that we're we're we've got to figure out how we're going to keep up with this changing world.
Yeah. 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 It's a lot to think about. I want to just mention as well this video that I just received a link to, that's the history of the ITA.
Hmm.
And again, we're going to have a link to that in the show notes on parentingaces.com. But it was really eye opening I've only watched half of it. It's it's a little long. It's a little over an hour. But it was really cool to understand how the ITA came to be and why there was a need for a tennis coaches association at the collegiate level. And I'm wondering, is that something like, did you watch it and go, gosh, I never knew that? Or did you already know everything that was in it?
No, I mean, it was so this was a project that David Benjamin, Tim's predecessor, and the 30-year ITAC, absolute genius of a man, and
And by
create.
the way, who was on this podcast several times when he was still in his role as head of the
Okay.
ITA. So that dates us a little bit too,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, no, David is a treasure in just the world of tennis in general, and what he was able to create, and again, the ownership of the rule making process, and the rankings, and the evolution of college tennis. And you see, yeah, the ITA's always kept up and been ahead of the curve in certain areas as well. No, I don't know that there was anything that really jumped out to me. There is so much history, and there's so much that was edited out. You said it was long, but
Yeah.
there's probably 15 hours of content that we tried to get down to an hour. David might actually start working on a book, to really tell, go into more depth in some of he's got so many amazing stories to
Yeah.
tell. But yeah, that's part of our job as well. I mean, a lot of people don't know that when they, again, think of the ITA, they think of the top of Division One tennis, and what are we doing to serve the top of Division One tennis, not understanding that, yeah, we also have halls of fame that we manage, and somebody has to, archive the history of college tennis, and that's our job to do as well. And some people might go, well, I don't care about the history, I just care about today. It's like, well, we care about the history of college tennis, and we want to maintain it, and make sure that future generations see all the work that went into hopefully making whatever version of college tennis they have, which I hope will be even better and greater and more opportunities for them. That these are all the people that made it possible. And so yeah, thanks for sharing. I hope you'll watch the whole thing. But we will be doing more history projects going forward, and we need to capture Tim and John's tenure over the last 10 years as well, because a huge amount changed under Tim's tenure, and really took David's foundation, and then Tim really professionalized it, brought it to be a modern day not for profit. And as I tell people in the tennis space, I don't think college tennis has ever been stronger or better. I mean, the quality of tennis, Lisa, now, like I'm watching our national indoors. I mean, it's so good. These
It's
players
so
are so
good.
good. Yeah, so the relationships, like I mentioned, ITF, ATP, USTA, like we've never been in a better position tennis wise, but then it's just all the uncertainty with college athletics in general. If that wasn't all that stuff wasn't going on, I think we'd be flying high right now and really an incredible upward trajectory. But yeah, I've inherited a great situation, an incredible organization, board, staff, um, just in terms of our reserves, things like that. We're in a great spot, but I need to now manage this kind of wartime turbulent process that we're going to go through the next few years. But I have the energy and enthusiasm to attack it. I'm not scared by it.
Good. Well, it's good to hear. And I do want to encourage everybody watching or listening to this that if you have not gone to see a college tennis match, now is the time. It is the season right now. National indoors are happening across the different divisions. Men's and women's are typically separate. But then we've got the dual match season underway, and the championships will be in the spring. And it's just such an exciting time for college tennis.
Mhm.
If wherever you live, there is likely a college tennis match happening within, half hour of you, if
Yeah.
not closer. So go check it out. Take your kids, take a group of kids. If you're a junior coach, please encourage your families to go to these matches. It is the best way to inspire these players to keep working hard and to strive toward playing in college. And I just, I love college tennis. I had a love-hate relationship with it when my son was playing, but I've come back around to the love side, and I want to encourage everybody to experience it for themselves.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, January through May, there are matches going on every day in every part of the country, indoors, outdoors, every division. It's yeah, it's hard. I think our product is so much better live as well, like when you see it in person. Um, the streaming television, it just doesn't do it justice. Having one court versus being there and watching all six happening at the same time. And I think it's perfect for today's society, right? Our ADHD kind of brains. And so you get bored with one match, you just, look two courts down and there's something exciting happening. So thanks for encouraging that, Lisa. The more people we can get out, the better.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, it's been a pleasure. I love talking with you always. And if there's anything happening that you want to share with our audience, I hope you'll reach out and we'll get you back on to chat about it. And, I'm always happy to share information with our community.
Thank you, Lisa. I know that. No, I appreciate your ongoing support of the ITA, of college tennis, of me, and we'll definitely keep you updated.
Awesome. Thanks again. And to my audience, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Parenting Aces.